Hey everybody, welcome to the advice stream. I am your host, JeremyInternational. The advice stream is maybe the only stream, I don't know, where we play old video games, we dish advice, we hang out and we just talk, we have a good time. I feel like there's a couple people maybe trickling into the stream. If you're new, then say hi, I guess, right? That's what you do when you're new. If you'd like to submit an advice-related question anonymously, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form at the bottom where you can submit your questions, and you can also leave tips if you want to. You certainly don't have to, but that is an option that people have. I hope everyone's been having a good week. We're on a run. I typically do a couple weeks in a row and then I take a couple weeks off, but I'm going to try my best to go every week until the end of the year. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to pull that off or not, but I'm certainly going to try. What else is going on? We have Oldmin joining us. I see Oldmin is in the chat. Hey, Oldmin. We'll have you on in just a second, and we kind of started this briefly last time, but I want to kind of dig into this a little bit more because I was having a good time playing it. We're going to dig into Buck Rogers. What is this game called again? The Countdown to Doomsday, it's called. It's an RPG. It's made by Electronic Arts and also TSR, who are the folks that used to make Dungeons and Dragons. It's a very Dungeons and Dragons-y kind of game, but it's Buck Rogers. I'm having a little bit of bourbon. This is my weekly glass of bourbon I allow myself. And I'm eating some pretzels. Pretzels, I think, are like the most mid of the salty, crunchy snacks. I like a soft pretzel. Don't get me wrong, that's a different thing than this. These are just real blah. They're a little salty. They're a little crunchy. I'll take it. But not my fave. All right, well, let's bring Oldman in, because I feel like I'm all alone in the world here. Hey, Oldman.
Incorrect. Pretzels are the best snack.
You think pretzels are your preferred salty, crunchy snack for real? You just
Absolutely.
saying that?
No, I'm not just saying that. I really believe it. They're the best one. Although there are mid versions of pretzels. There's a difference. It's kind of strange that you can have like good pretzels and bad pretzels given how simple they are.
Yeah, that's true. You could have good potato chips and bad potato chips. You could have good corn
Yeah.
chips and bad corn chips. These are Utz crunchy pretzels, and I feel like Utz is also the most mid potato chips. So it would follow then that they also make underwhelming pretzels. No offense, if anyone from Utz is out there listening. You got the market. You're there. The reason I have these is because I took my 4-year-old kid into the liquor store, as you do, and she wanted something, and the only thing that they had was pretzels. So that's why we got them. I feel like Utz is good. They got the liquor store market down.
Can you hear Data right now?
I can. It sounds like the Hound of the Baskervilles or something.
That's what beagles are all about. They make this noise all the time. All the time. If he keeps doing it, you do get used to it. If he keeps doing it in 30 seconds, I will let him outside. He doesn't want to be outside.
Is he barking at something specific, you think?
He's barking because I decided to let Jordy outside tonight because Jordy likes being outside and he doesn't complain. Data, if I let him outside, he whines and whines, just like he's doing right now, but you can't hear him quite as much.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's the unusual routine that he's barking at.
Yeah. See, I love dogs, don't get me wrong. I'm not like a cat person, dog person. Like I have cats, obviously I prefer cats. Love dogs. Never had a dog myself. And if I was in the middle of a conversation with someone and my dog just started barking out of nowhere, I'd be like, oh, well, there's a Terminator coming to kill me. That's what that means.
Yeah, you filter it out eventually.
I just give up and die.
It's so
on the
meaningless
spot.
most of the time. It just doesn't mean anything most of the time. Like people will like I have guests over occasionally, very occasionally, to my house, and Data will start doing his little routine where he's begging and he's whining and he wants attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I have to let people know he's okay. He's very dramatic, but he's okay. He just wants attention. That's
Yeah.
really like his number one priority at all times is attention. And that's
Hey,
okay.
big same on my part. I know I can respect that. I was, when I need attention, I do a live stream on Twitch. I don't bark at the moon, but he doesn't have hands, so he can't get a Twitch account.
No.
Um, cool. Well, we don't have a lot going on in the crowd.
No, I'm actually a little bit surprised by that because as I was saying to you earlier, I maximum promoted this. So
Yeah.
maybe that backfired. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we both stink and are terrible people, and no one on the internet wants to see or hear us. Ever think about that?
I think about that all the time, actually.
Me too. Me too. That's the only explanation why there's not I don't get 100,000 likes every Twitch is because I'm a terrible person.
No, but you know what, Jeremy? Here's what I say. I tell people about this show that you and I do, and what I say is this is an excuse for Jeremy and I to hang out once a week, and that's really all that matters to me.
All that matters,
personally. That's like the real truth behind it. I'm not trying to get famous from this.
I mean, I'm not trying to. I would like for it to happen like organically.
Well, yes, of course. Me too.
I'm not trying to do anything to get rich and famous. I'm expecting it to happen regardless. All right. Well, that's cool. We can have a chill night. I'm trying to think of other things that are exciting to go on. Things that are in the news that are good. We try to stick. God, I shouldn't eat while I'm doing a stream. That's why no one's here. We try to stick to positive things that make us feel happy and hopeful on the show. And sometimes it's hard to come by those things in the world we find ourselves in. But, as Gandalf said, we don't get to pick the times we live in. We only get to pick what we do in those times. So I'm going to go with what Gandalf says. Oh, speaking of that, can I show you something cool? Hold on. I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. I'm back. So I think I might have mentioned this because I've done this once before. I always, I have this big gallery wall behind me. I'm always trying to find new cool stuff to put on it. And guerrilla marketing on Hinge.
Uh-oh.
Hey, well, first off, thanks for Burn Like a Witch, man. That is a cool name, Burn Like a Witch. Thanks for joining the chat. Welcome to the show. First time chatter I can see. That's a good idea. I feel like both Oldman and I have done a little bit of guerrilla marketing at like real life parties where we've talked up the show in like a flirtatious. I'm married, so I don't do, I'm gonna get flirty maybe, but that's as far as I go. But I feel like we never got anyone to actually come watch the show, but we had so many people at this party, remember, that were so excited about the show, and then none of them ever watched it. So, what happens in real life is what happens in real life. So here's the cool thing I wanted to show you.
Let's see it.
So, big Tolkien fan, if you're new to the show, Burn Like a Witch. I'm a big Tolkien fan. I'm deep, I come and go, but I'm deep into my Tolkien bullshit these days. And I wanted to have some really nice, like, illustrations or, like, art prints from Lord of the Rings or whatever. But most of those prints are super, super expensive on the internet. So I go on eBay. I find a bunch of old calendars from the 70s that are just like a couple bucks because they're old calendars. Who wants those? And then when they come in the mail, I cut them up and I frame them. And I get these really cool... You can't see this at all because of the glare. This is Eowyn in The Witch King.
I love it. It looks so good.
I
know that you had been already doing this with some of the other ones.
Yeah, I did this once before. There's one behind me over there of Arwen and Aragorn's wedding. But these come out so good. And like I've seen this print for sale, like a really nice version of this print for sale, and it's hundreds and hundreds of bucks. And this is, a $15 old calendar that I cut up and I got it framed, and I think it looks real nice.
I think finding art books at thrift stores and then cutting them up and framing them is the thing to do.
And here's another one of Galadriel that looks like Stevie Nicks.
Well, let's see her face. I can't see her face here.
Yeah, I mean, her face maybe doesn't look like Stevie Nicks, but it's more like a vibes. She has Stevie Nicks vibes. So anyways, that's what I did this week, which was super exciting. I did buy a few old video games from the internet. They haven't come in the mail yet. And we said before that there's some weird financial stuff going on that I'm happy to share if people want to hear it, but they probably don't because it's boring. And so I'm a little limited in my old video game purchase, which is, usually where all my funsy munsies go. But I did get a couple cheap ones, mostly Nintendo 64 games. So we'll
Jeremy,
see how that goes.
We haven't had a guest apart from myself in quite a while.
I
but
know.
Maybe it would be a good idea next time to get like a financial advisor on here.
That is a really good idea to give financial advice to people.
Somebody who's licensed, maybe.
Yeah, definitely someone who's licensed. There's one of the questions that I'm going to read out has a really straightforward medical question, but it's still a medical question, and it's something that I know a bit about. We'll get to it in a second. Mm-hmm. And I felt really confident about answering it on the show, and then I thought for a minute, let me go double check my sources on that to make sure I'm not accidentally giving the opposite of accurate.
Listen, as long as you're not dragging some roadkill into Central Park to leave it there as a prank.
Yeah, I know. Ugh,
I think you're gonna be all right.
If your dad got murdered live on national television when you were a teenager, I think you'd grow up to be a little bit disjointed as well. That's the kindest thing I can think of to say about RFK Jr.
Yeah, that's way too kind, though.
Well, I'm working on my radical empathy. I think I'm making some progress. I'm not sure I can get there for other people in that political alignment, but I can get there maybe for him, especially because he seems kind of not threatening or serious.
I've definitely done more work on my radical politics over my radical empathy over the last few years, but I am working on the latter.
I'd say when you consider kind of the status quo for American culture and American politics, there's nothing more radical than empathy.
That's true. I mean, the radical politics is based on empathy too, but
yeah,
that's a whole rabbit hole I could go down.
Okay, you want to do a question?
Mm-hmm.
Just to remind everybody, you can see the URL down there. If you would like to submit a question, we discuss these questions as a community. So not just me and Oldmin, but you, the viewing audience at home, are welcome to chime in to discuss. That's my favorite part, is when we can have a discussion as a little community about the topics that come up. If you'd like to submit a question, you can go to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form at the bottom you can use to submit a question anonymously. I will read it anonymously, although if you don't care to be anonymous, you can just shoot it right in the chat and we'll read it that way as well. Speaking of that, let me go look, because I've only been monitoring Twitch. Let me make sure that no one's trying to reach me on YouTube. Of course not, because no one ever watches on YouTube. I'll go back to Twitch. Okay. Let's do... Okay, here's one. This one's kind of tricky. 2 places I feel like home to me. The city I lived until this year, and the city my family has roots in, where I spent many of my summers and holidays growing up. Both are nice enough places. That's a weird thing to say. But they don't really fit what my wife and I want now. This year, we moved to a northeastern city that checks all those boxes. But I'm miserable. The distance from family and the lack of connection to the place hurts. I tell myself I'll adjust, but I just keep feeling worse. And I'm starting to lean on unhealthy coping mechanisms. They do not divulge anymore about what that could be. I'm not sure if I even want to adjust. The idea of calling this place home one day feels like losing something. How can I reconcile these conflicting wants? How can I talk to my wife about this?
Let's review just for a moment. He moved from where to where?
Doesn't say. City he lived in for the city I lived in until this year. He doesn't say what it is. And then
But
the city
it's from an urban area to an urban area.
seems like it. He does say the word city in each of these places he's lived in.
Okay, just for the record. That's all I had to ask for now.
Yeah. You know, I can relate to this a little bit. When our kid was born 4 years ago, you know, we left a big thriving city where we had a really intense sense of community and deep roots. And we moved to what is still technically a city, but a much more suburban kind of city.
30 minutes away, 40 minutes away. Sorry,
45 minutes away. I'm not,
it's not
close.
That far.
It's not that far, but it's far enough. You know that life sometimes requires these big changes. And I think that when you change where you are physically, that it also is required that you change who you are on the inside at least a little bit. And it seems like this is where this guy's stuck, is he's changed where he is on the outside, but he hasn't been able to change anything about the inside. And that's really, really hard to manage. He hasn't been there for that long. It says a year. So he moved this year. So he's been there for 9 months at the most. So, you know, I mean, the advice I'd give him is a couple of things. One is you haven't been there that long. Give it a little bit more time. You have to kind of push yourself to start to build, you know, making friends as an adult is challenging. You need to push yourself a little bit more to start to meet people and interact with people and to start to build a little scene for yourself. What we always say on the show is if you getting plugged into a scene of any kind can be really important. Finding your people is one of the most important things anyone can do at any age in their life, especially if they find themselves in a new city. So, you know, whatever genre of music you're into, whatever types of books you like, or whatever specific kind of nerd you are, like go to the places where those things are happening so you can plug in and meet new people. That'll go a long way to making you feel like you have a community, which to me is everything. The other thing I want to say, and this is something I struggle with and have to remind myself about a lot, is that nostalgia is you missing a time, not a place. It feels like it's a place a lot, but nostalgia isn't a longing for a place. It's a longing for a time. When you go back to a place, places change all the time, especially these days, politically, economically, after the pandemic. They're the places that felt like home to me 5 years, 6 years ago feel like a totally a foreign country now. You can't go back to a place. You can't go back to a time. You can only go back to a place, and very often that place is not the same anymore.
I can tell you, Jeremy, since I still am in the place that you moved away from, it has changed. And it's not the same.
I'm not far enough away. Yeah.
Well, why don't you visit me then? I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, I go there for work more often than not.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, like I completely agree. I would characterize it somewhat differently. Is that nostalgia is for a place and a time, and that place and time together are the things that you are yearning for. But you can't ever get back to it because obviously the time has changed.
Yeah.
I think about church night. I'll just mention church night, and I have been thinking about it a lot recently, just as something that I really miss. I miss all those people. I miss what that whole thing meant. It was huge. It was huge in this city, and it was a big part of my life. It was,
Oh,
I guess I wasn't quite as close to you and everybody else that was involved with that at the time, but it was still a big part of my life, and
yeah.
something that I could always look forward to happening. And these days, I can go to Hotbed and see some of those comedians who used to be in church night, and I'm very proud that they're still doing what they're doing. Uh, but that's a nostalgia move too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Completely unrelated to the question.
Well, but it
Uh,
is it is in a way because life moves on. Time moves on. We can't hold on to everything in the past forever, however much we wish we could. I think about, for if there's people that are new to the show or that don't know me, I was part of a pretty successful comedy show, live comedy show for many, many years that is on hiatus, maybe forever, maybe it'll come back someday. And the pandemic, and then for all of us, the pandemic, and then for me personally, having a kid and moving uprooted every part of my life in those days. Those are all things that had to happen. I mean, I'm sure someone in the world somewhere could have prevented the pandemic from happening, but it ain't you and me. It's not anybody that we know. So, life moves forward. You have to roll with the punches and you have to try to find your joy and your peace wherever you end up being. Amir's just joining the chat. Hey, Amir, thanks for joining. The question is, long story short, this person, the letter writer, moved from one city to another. They're far from family. They haven't really been able to make a community in their new city. They're miserable. They feel lost. They're starting to lean on unhealthy coping mechanisms. I don't know what that means, but I don't like the sound of it. So they're asking, how do they reconcile this conflict of wanting to have this new life in a city, but at the same time being miserable? And then the second question we haven't addressed yet is, how do they talk to their wife about it? Which I want to get to in just a second, because I think that's the more important question. But life moves forward and things change and things end. And I think, you know, I mean, the risk of sounding like a cliche, fun is a skill, and you have to practice it,
it
and you have to
absolutely
want to
is.
have it. Most in life, good things don't happen by accident, generally speaking.
Hmm.
If you want to find your footing in this city, if you want to find happiness and joy and excitement, it's going to be work, and you got to
Hmm.
do it. You got to find your people. You got to find your scene to plug into, and that takes work. That takes risk, because going up and talking to strangers there's always a concern you're going to be embarrassed or come across as being stupid or something. I don't know.
Or
Um,
creepy or something like
or
that.
creepy.
Exactly, Jeremy. I'm
I
sorry to interrupt, but
No, please.
uh, the worst piece of advice that is extremely common that people get for dating is, well, just wait around. The right person will come to you eventually.
Oh God,
You
no.
don't have to try. But you know what? That's not just a bad piece of advice for dating. That's a bad piece of advice for friendship.
Yeah,
And friendship is just as important as romantic relationships as an adult.
yeah,
And making new friendships or maintaining old friendships, like you and I try to do, is something you have to put work into. You have to actually think about it and do it.
yeah.
You can't just sit around and wait for it. And I hate that that's so common, because I'm sure that it leads to a lot of people feeling lonely and isolated.
Yeah, because people think that those things just happen, and and to an extent, at least that initial like connection with a person, whether it's a friendship connection or a romantic or dating connection, that initial connection can sometimes happen by mistake. Although less and less, I
Sometimes.
think in our
Yeah,
modern world,
exactly.
those things happen less
Exactly.
often. That's why there's all the apps. That's why Hinge exists, right? Is to shorten to make those, oh hey, this person seems cool, I wonder if they're into me, to make that process quicker and easier, which I think is really, really good. I know people like
Yeah.
to complain about the apps, but I mean, I'm old enough to remember before the apps, the way that you would meet someone to date is you'd go to a bar, you'd hang around until you saw someone that you thought was cute, and then you'd walk up to them and essentially say, "Hey, I understand you're talking to your friends, but right now you have to talk to me. How's it
And
going?"
then you'd quote Anchorman at them for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. And it was terrible, and it didn't work for that system didn't work for anybody, and everybody left either feeling creeped out or sad and lonely. Now, this is
Dark days.
how old I really am. Is what I used to do is go to bars and smoke and just sit in the corner and smoke cigarettes. That's how old I
Yo.
am. Is you could do that in those days,
Or you
and
could do it at Burger King.
you could smoke anywhere. You could smoke in a hospital. And I'd sit in the corner and smoke and look sad until someone would come up and talk to me, and sometimes that happened.
Aww.
But the amount of time I put into doing that and the amount of times I got laid from it was not the juice was not worth the squeeze, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Anyways,
no, I don't know what you mean exactly, but I get it. I get what you're talking about.
So going back to the question, the more important question I think is, how can I talk to my wife about this?
Yes.
A marriage is, people talk about how like you marry your best friend, and certainly having like a friendship with your spouse is important, but the more important thing about a marriage is having a partner. And that's why they call them partners. And if you're miserable, if you're unhappy, you have an obligation to your partner to tell them that. Not that you need to tell them, and we need to move back, and we need to give up on this dream or this plan of living in this particular city, but just that you're struggling and you're not sure what to do. Like, that's the really great thing about having, whether you're married or just have a long-term relationship, all of that is a partnership. Lean on your partner, he says wife. So lean on your wife to help you talk through this. Not that she's going to fix this for you. That's also not what a partnership does. That's what a mom does. But that this is someone you can talk to about. You don't have to be miserable by yourself, and figure out what you're going to do. Maybe, the one part of this guy's struggle is that he feels the distance from his family is rough. And I feel that every day because I'm far away from my family, and that is hard for me. But depending on how far, I mean, my family's like a 5-hour drive away, so I can go there when I need to. I don't have to spend thousands of dollars on an airplane. But even if she can't do anything to help you with your feelings, she needs to know how you feel. That's one of the most essential things of a partnership is sharing how you feel, especially when you're struggling. This is something I have a hard time with, I think, because I think a lot of people that are raised in the male style feel like we're supposed to suffer on our own, or that we're not supposed to have negative feelings, that we're just supposed to be brave and happy all the time. And but you're allowed to be miserable. You're allowed to be stressed. You're allowed to be uncertain about where you're at. And you need to tell your wife that, not with the expectation that she fixes this for you, not with the expectation that she has to start coming to terms with the idea that you're going to leave. I mean, maybe you leave, maybe you don't. But you haven't been there a year yet. So you got to tell her how is, the way that we have difficult conversations with our partners is we make sure that people are well rested, that we've had all of our immediate needs met, that we're fed and comfortable and otherwise content. And then say, hey, I need to have a challenging conversation with you now. Are you ready to have a challenging conversation? I have to talk to you about something hard. And give her a chance to say yes or no. And if she says no, then set time aside at another time to do it. And if she says yes, and tell her, hey, just what you wrote, that we moved. I feel distance from my family. I'm not feeling like I found my step in this new city, and I'm not happy about it. And I'm not asking for a fix. I'm not saying we have to come up with a plan right now, but I just need you to know how I feel. And if she's not open to that, then you know that you don't have a good marriage. That's how you find out, I guess.
I think that in any place in the United States, you're going to be able to find some people who they don't necessarily. It's going to be harder in certain places depending on what type of person you are. It's going to take longer. It might not be exactly what you want at first. But I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, and Sarasota, Florida has an average age of over 65. And I found some wonderful people down there who really shaped me as I grew up into a young man. And so I know that, if you can find your people in Sarasota, you can find your people anywhere.
I like that. That's good. You should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Oldmin. That's really good. We live in a really big world, and there's all kinds of people, all different shapes and sizes of people. And there's people wherever you live that are into what you're into. Lean into what you're into. Find your scene, find your tribe, and that'll go.
Plus, if you were hip in a city and you move out to a place that's not so hip, you gotta leg up. That's all I'm saying with that one.
Yeah. That's
but
you could
I agree.
Quickly become the coolest fish in the pond.
No, I mean that's a little bit of too high of an expectation, I think, because people in the country are cool too, and they're different, and just because you're from a city doesn't mean you're automatically going to be the coolest fish in the pond.
That's fair.
Yeah, you're not going to know where to jump off the bridge into the river. You're not going to know the best place to tip cows. And yeah, but as far as the talking to his wife aspect of this, which I just want to comment on shortly because we should play a video game in a second. I think you're right about that. Like, have a conversation with her about it. Work together. Don't put it all on her plate just because maybe this was her idea. I'm not sure if that's what the letter communicated necessarily, that this was her idea. But if you want to have a healthy relationship with your partner or your spouse, you need to be able to have that kind of conversation and to work together to actively address it.
Yeah. 100% agreed. Yeah, but he has to. He can't. That's being miserable isn't something you can keep from your partner. That's unkind to them, and it's unkind to you.
Exactly.
She has to know. But this isn't something that you necessarily need, that needs to be fixed right away. Like you can work on this, and it's probably going to take a while to do it. Once again, you haven't been there for that long. But that's what partners do, is they help each other through these types of situations. Okay, let's see. Let's get one of the things I wanted to do. Oh my gosh, I haven't set anything up yet. Hang on. Amateur, Jeremy International, amateur. Let's look at this. Let's do one of these. And not that one of these. Okay. There we go. What was I going to say? One of the things I wanted to do was to go through and do, because this game, if you remember, we played this for just a couple minutes last week. This game has a pretty intense character creation setup for a 16-bit video game from 1990, whatever.
Yes, it does.
1991. And I was going to go and set up a whole complement of characters on my own time. And I didn't do it.
Did you do it? Okay, no.
I didn't do it. So let's make sure we got some audio.
But you did save before we quit last time. So you at least have the four-person complement.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Oh my gosh. These graphics, though. I love it.
I want to just go on the record here to say that I'm Nintendo through and through. I think the Super Nintendo, which was comparable to was contemporaneous to the Sega Genesis, has way better games. But the Sega Genesis just looks so good. I just can't get over how great this game looks.
It was technically a better console. Audio-wise, graphics-wise.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Technologically, a better console. Super Nintendo's got better games, though. Not that the Sega Genesis doesn't have great games. Obviously, it does. But, if you wanted to stack up the classics that are just kind of essentials, I think the Super Nintendo's got way more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite, a preferred Sega Genesis game, Super Nintendo game?
Oh, I was a huge fan of Super Mario RPG.
Yeah, I have that. I never played it. Maybe we should do that soon. I think that's what we're gonna do. Is we'll stick with the Genesis till the end of September. In October, we're probably not gonna do any games. We're gonna do scary movies and special guests all month. And then in November, assuming that we still have a country, we'll do the same thing but with the Super Nintendo. We'll go through my Super Nintendo collection, which is a little bit bigger than my Sega Genesis collection. And we'll check out, I really would like to check out Super Mario RPG. That game is on the collector's market gone way up in value.
Well, they just remastered it also.
Yeah.
I haven't played the remastered version at all, though. So I'd love to see it again. I could give you some advice without checking game FAQs.
I love it. A Link to the Past, the Zelda game for the Super Nintendo, is probably my favorite video game of all time. So if I was going to pick a Super Nintendo game that's my favorite, it would be that one. As far as the Sega goes, Sonic 2 is about as good as a 2D platformer gets.
You know what? This is just a random thought, but I had a Game Shark for the PlayStation.
Uh-huh.
And so I learned to put in all those many numbers and letters in order just to cheat in Final Fantasy VII. And I think the thing that really allowed me to do that was Sonic and Knuckles. Because you have to plug the thing into the thing, and then it alters the video game. So that put the concept in my head that was a possibility even. Do you know what I'm saying, Jeremy?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Maybe it doesn't make much sense, but
no, I get it.
I never beat FF7 legitimately.
So hold on, how did the Game Shark work for the PlayStation? I know that there was one, but I never thought about it before. What is it?
It had a data port or something like that in the back.
Uh-huh.
Where you could plug it into.
So it was like a cartridge that went, I know the data port on a PlayStation.
Yes, very, very similar to a cartridge.
Huh, interesting. I don't know. This says restore game 1 pre-generated team.
Maybe let's go with the pre-generated team this time. Because that's going to fill it out. When I was reading the game FAQs last week, you were supposed to have 6 characters, and you only made 4. Okay. So
that's right. We got Flavius, Celeste, Pierre, Nicole, Rourke, and Janelle.
All right, Janelle.
All right, Janelle. That makes sense to me. It seems like it's pretty well balanced. We got 2 medics. We got one of the astronaut guys. We got one of the hacker guys, although they probably didn't use that word back then. And then 2 lasery people. Okay, so we're just going to start from scratch. That's fine. We only got in a couple minutes. The thing that's so weird to this is like the, okay, go ahead, yes, approve button is C on this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're new, just to bring in a couple other things. So we play original game cartridges on closest to original hardware as we're able to get to work with this technological setup. So I'm playing an original Buck Rogers game cartridge from 1991. I'm playing it on Mega SG, which is a device made by Analog. Big fans of Analog on the channel. We talk about Analog all the time. Analog is a Sega Genesis hardware emulator. It's not a software. It's not a game emulator. You still have to put your games in. But the reason I'm using that instead of original Sega Genesis, which I have, is that the Mega SG's got an HDMI port on it, so it's just easy to set up for this. I could get an original Sega Genesis to work through this, but it wouldn't look as good, and it would also take a lot of time to set up, and I'm not really about that life. In addition to the Mega SG, I'm also using the 8BitDo M30. This is 8BitDo's Bluetooth wireless Sega Genesis controller. It's a really accurate feel for the original 6-button Sega Genesis controller, which you could also use if you really wanted to on a Sega Saturn. But because Sega Saturn came with a 6-button controller too, it looked a lot cooler than this. But anyways, I digress. So we did a little bit of this already. I don't love reading text on the stream, but we'll read this text just so everyone knows where we are. You join Neo to fight the Ram Menace. That sounds intimidating. You are being briefed in the Chicago spaceport. Earth has been devastated. Oh, that's too bad. During the 25th century, but now, thanks to you and thousands like you, you can begin to rebuild this planet. You are assigned to Salvation Station. I love that alliteration for salvage. Oh, there's 3 bits of alliteration. Salvation Station for salvage. Duty and march toward the waiting shuttle.
Jeremy, I was just gonna say,
yeah,
we need to get 8BitDo to sponsor our stream, because I'm not sure if I showed you this, but I got the keyboard.
Oh, you did?
I got the old IBM keyboard thing.
Yeah. Is it really clicky? I love that.
Oh, it's so clicky. I'm sure my coworkers hate me. I've been bringing it into the office. I'm sure they hate me.
I have in our basement, I have a mechanical keyboard that's so clicky. And it's probably not as nice as that one though. And
it is very nice.
We've been hanging out a lot down there because Fred Undead, my partner, is playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or whatever it's called. And I've been playing like a resource building, like a city management building game on the gaming PC. And there's a lot of clicking and typing, and it's clack, 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 clack. While she's playing.
That's cute.
I'm sure
though.
She's super annoyed by it.
What a cute conflict to have.
A cute conflict to have. Amir says we should totally bring back these humongous UI that cover half the screen. And
a million%.
Ironically.
A million%.
As long as it looks good, Amir, I'm with you. But it's gotta look good. It's gotta be worth it.
I spent so much time trying to get the old EverQuest UI on my own computer when I was playing Project 1999, which is a pirate server for the old EverQuest. And I could never get it to work, but that's the only thing that I really wanted, was like the square old thing that I used to see on my laptop. I'm sorry, but I really wanted that to happen. Apparently it's something you can do, but at this point I'm like, I'm still finishing Baldur's Gate 3, so.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things that I've really been enjoying about playing old video games is just those aesthetics. That's a nostalgia that you can kind of sort of revisit in a very limited way, is playing old games. And like old NES games where like the background is so obviously just a repeating pattern, like a cliffside or whatever. It just makes me feel like I'm home.
Exactly. Limitation is the mother of art.
Yeah, I agree.
In this kind of old stuff.
Yeah. I've been rewatching once again, because I'm deep into my Tolkien bullshit these days. I've been rewatching Peter Jackson's The Hobbit movies, and there are parts of those movies that are great, and the parts that are so tedious and boring are the parts where they just like, we can CGI in anything we want, so let's just do it. And like, what? It's just it ruins the experience. But there are also long bits of that movie that are wonderful, and I love The Hobbit so much. And maybe I'm just a sucker, I don't know. But I have such mixed feelings about those movies, because there's big parts of them I love, and then you get to a part that's like there's an army that you can't count how many people are in because it stretches off to the horizon. Like, why do that? Why bother?
It seems meaningless at that point.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so yada yada yada. We were sent to Salvation Station for salvaging, and then were attacked. Fighters scream and low, etc., and so forth. The other recruits are fleeing. You have been thrust headfirst into a raging battle. What's battle? The reason, by the way, that I got into this game when we played it a little bit last time, and why I want to play it more this time, is because I want Dungeons and Dragons more in my life, and this game feels very like an old Dungeons and Dragons-y computer game.
Very much. It literally is just second edition D&D. That as far as I could tell on our last stream, it's just the rules from second edition D&D in a sci-fi setting.
Yeah, and I really I'm really feeling that. Yeah, like this big, like half the screen's taken up by just this static cityscape, and
but it looks so good.
It does look so good. People pay big bucks to have this kind of old vibe these days. Enemy transporters have arrived. Terrans jump out and engage the disorganized Neo troops. He's got such a jaunty little step. He's having a good time.
He's getting his steps in for sure.
Yes. Ah. The heat from explosions drives you back. You are very exposed out here on the tarmac. So should I go back? The heat.
Yeah, I think you needed to go to a certain building first, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Yeah, Mir says power walk. Oh, here he is. Pew. They're called Terrans. Isn't that what you would call someone from Earth?
No, actually, those are that's what the people at University of Maryland call themselves. Terrapins.
Terps.
Terps, yeah.
Flavius takes control of. Well, I want to be this guy with the little sword. He looks cool. Okay, so he's gonna target this ding dong. And he's
as I was saying last time, I really like how different this combat system is from some of the other older D&D based games, because you have that little target reticule.
Yeah, it feels real action-y.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot simpler and a lot more natural in terms of like how you do it, versus some of those other old D&D games that I tried to play and were just too confusing in terms of the combat.
Yeah. Well, what about the guy with the sword? Does he got to like run up to them or something?
You're also on a different side than you were last time.
I know. I think it's just because I walked in the wrong direction.
Right direction.
Nope, even though this person's holding a sword, that they're gonna shoot too. It seems like they got a really long distance. If anyone out there is listening in though that likes to play like resource management and city building games, I've been playing this game called Manor Lords. It's in early preview on Steam, and you build like a little medieval village and you have to grow food and yada yada yada, but it also has this really great like army building combat mode, and there's like diplomacy. It's really deep. There's a lot of it that's not unlocked yet because it's in a preview, but I'm so into it. I can't wait for the final version to come out, which will probably be like a million years from now. All right, well, we won our first battle. The team has won. Each character receives 62 experience points. Is that a lot? The team has found 250 credits. That seems like a lot. Treating wounds. Well, who got hurt? I wish they would tell me what their maximum...
We didn't even have a leader to defeat this time, I think.
Yeah, I know. Maybe they're around somewhere. Okay, forgot about this. We have to divvy out the booty. Dazzle grenades. We'll give one to this person. That little animation there is so cool, though. I love it.
It looks like the Union Army, like, celebrating over a field of dead slavers from the South, which I love.
And then we need a smart suit. Let's give the smart suit. I like the guy in the green helmet. He's very retro futuristic. And we have 5 space suits, so most everybody gets a space suit. And someone gets a sword. Let's give the sword to this person. All right, well, let's go get in one more battle. I'm sure we can find one since we're being invaded by people from the University of Maryland or whatever. And then we'll do... Oh, he just popped out of nowhere. And then we'll do another question. Oh, this is close quarters now.
I love that the drums in this
Yeah,
song.
I know. Music's pretty good.
I mean, it's repetitive, but I'd like to sample it.
Yeah. That guy's tough. He would not go down. Oh, boy.
I would really like some of these older games that are based on 2nd edition D&D, but like I said earlier, the combat system is just so archaic and time-consuming and confusing.
Yeah, this isn't too confusing though, right?
You know who was complaining to me about 2nd edition D&D this weekend? Code 2.
Oh, yeah?
Our friend Code 2.
Yeah.
He's been playing Baldur's Gate 1, and so what he was saying to me is the armor class in these old games is backwards. So less... The number that is less is more armor.
Why?
And he got confused,
Yeah,
just because of the way that they designed it. Like, so if you get -2 armor class, you're awesome. You're a god, basically. But if 1 armor class is actually not that good.
Weird. That's so confusing.
Some people prefer it. I don't know why. I never played tabletop 2nd edition D&D though, so I guess I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, me neither.
I did convince him to play Baldur's Gate 1 though, because there's no Baldur's Gate 3 on Switch, but there are adaptations of the older ones on that
I've got both.
console.
There's like a 2-for pack.
Mm-hmm.
That
they're good games.
Yeah, I'd like to play that at some point. So can I sell stuff if I don't have a place to put it?
There's got to be a shop somewhere.
Yeah, because like everyone's got one of these suits already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever. No. Okay, now I'm assuming we can go in. Oh, I have to enter through another door. Oh my gosh, they showed up again and now we're cornered. All right, we'll do one more of these and then we'll do another question.
Is this a random battles game?
I'm assuming that it is. Oh, ugh. This is a mess.
Oh boy. Come on, Janelle. Get it together.
Give him hell, Janelle.
Oh, she's almost gone.
I know. That grenade really knocked us for a loop. That guy is hanging in there, ain't he?
He's the leader.
I wonder if you take out the leader, if a bunch of them will like run away.
Yeah, if they had a morale system, that would be nice.
Yeah. Almost got him. Oh, another grenade. I guess I missed that time. Hey, we got him. No, they're not running away. All right, well, this is starting to get a little boring now, isn't it?
Well, we haven't gotten to chapter 1 yet.
No, I know.
Yeah, let's do another question after this.
Yeah. 2 more guys left.
I do like, Jeremy, that we got a little practice in this game first.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be interesting if I knew I could give like some Buck Rogers lore or whatever. I don't know shit about Buck Rogers.
I wanted to ask you about that because you did choose this game, and Buck Rogers is kind of ancient, and you are kind of... You're not ancient.
I'm not that old. I remember there being, when I was real little, there was Buck Rogers TV shows, probably in reruns when I was a kid. But that's all I know about Buck Rogers. Okay, let's bring the volume down. Let's switch our view back to here. There we go. Hey, Oldmin, how's it going?
That's going good.
Let's do another question. Let's do this one. Wait, no. Let's do this one. This is a real juicy one, and it's long. So bear with me, everybody, but this is one of my favorite topics to discuss. I, 20-year-old female, have been dating my boyfriend, 20-year-old male, for a year and 7 months. When we entered our relationship, he had told me he was pro-life, to which I respected to a certain extent. Why? Because of his religious upbringing. That's not an excuse for anything. But before we got sexually active, I made it clear that if we were going to have sexual activities and I ended up getting pregnant, I would be having an abortion. He agreed and said he would support me in my choice if we've had a normal, safe sex life since then. Recently, because of the upcoming election, we've been talking about pro-choice versus pro-life, and I was explaining to him real-life situations that happened due to the abortion ban. And when I was asking him if he understood, he said yes, but I felt something was wrong, so I asked him if I was pregnant right now, would he support me getting an abortion? And he said no. I immediately got confused because he had told me he would and let me think I had his support the entirety of our relationship, because we've had pregnancy scares, mostly because we have anxiety. And the only thing holding me down was that he would support me in any choice I made. I told him it was selfish and wrong of him to put me in that position for his own immaturity and sexual desires. When I asked him how could he have lied to me for so long, he said he wasn't lying and didn't realize until now. I don't believe that, because I think opinions on pro-life and pro-choice are something you know deep down what you agree with. He started to cry and said he would own up to it and would stop having intimate relations, but to me, that's not the point. I told him that I have to think about our relationship now because I don't know if I can be in a relationship with someone with different values and morals as me. He continued to cry and said he would support me in my beliefs, and he doesn't want me to leave or change. I know he truly loves me, and he would never try to convince me to be pro-life, but I just don't know if I would even be myself and get married to someone who's truly so different. I wouldn't identify as a feminist or who I am if I married him, right? How would it all be fine since he doesn't push me to be someone else? To be clear, I respect pro-life people to a certain extent, and I don't argue with people who stand clear on their ground. They are who they are, and I am my own person. What do I do?
Well, Jeremy, you better answer this before I start my rants.
I mean, a couple of things. First off, the only, I mean, people end relationships all the time because they don't have the same beliefs and values as the other person. I would go even further to say people generally don't even enter relationships with people that they have fundamentally different beliefs and values from. I think, we try to avoid talking about politics on the show, but more and more often, I'm a broken record. I say this almost every goddamn episode. More and more often, the types of issues that we discuss as if they were political issues in our country are actually moral issues and not political issues. And I think that the argument about pro-life, I'm using finger quotes around that because that's not really what they believe, and pro-choice is one of those things where we've politicized something that's actually a moral. The right-wing movements all throughout history, I know quite a bit about right-wing and fascist movements. Right-wing movements throughout history get a lot of clout. They get a lot of airtime in a society because they're able to convince people that moral issues of the day are political issues. In a democracy, in a free society, political issues, it's important to hear all of the different perspectives from. We have to be informed when we make our decisions, when we vote. But moral issues usually only have one, maybe two answers. And when we start to bring up moral issues as if political issues, what we're really doing is giving voice to people that have ill intent and have a malicious desire to their fellow citizens and members of their community. And I think that's one of the ways, if someone, I've never met a single person like this in my entire life. If someone said they were pro-life and that meant that they were anti-death penalty and they were anti-war, that they were pro-healthcare, that they were anti-gun, then I'd have
I've met many Catholics that are exactly like that. Left-wing Catholics.
That's fair. I'm not going to say a lot. I've met one or two. I know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. A lot is a bit of an exaggeration.
I would have respect for that stance if they had that pro-life belief about anything in addition to things that predominantly hurt poor women that choose to have sex. But because almost to the T, all of the pro-life community only cares about blocking women's access to medical care, that it's not a legitimate stance. And this relationship that this woman's talking about, this young man she's talking about, is a perfect example of that. He hasn't really thought about it. He said that he'd support her when it was convenient for him to do so. And then he said he wouldn't support her when it was also convenient for him to do so. Because he hasn't really thought through the ramifications of his belief system, because he doesn't have a belief system except either just doing whatever his parents told him to do, or more maliciously is causing harm to poor women that choose to have sex. Because that's really all that abortion means. Rich people always have access to the medical care they want.
Exactly.
Only poor people suffer from bans like that. So he doesn't have a legitimate stance. He hasn't really thought it through. He's never thought it through, and he's probably not going to, because he comes from a community that doesn't value consistency in their beliefs, or what I'm going to call intellectual integrity. Doesn't exist in those types of communities. Not dating someone that has such a fundamental difference in worldviews from you is probably a smart move. I don't think you should date this person anymore. He lied to you when lying to you that he could get laid, and then he told you the truth when it didn't matter, when he thought he was safe. and I don't think he's a person that's trustworthy or reliable. To be clear, if someone's belief is I don't think women should get abortion, and then they say, "Hey, I'm a woman and I'm not going to get an abortion," that's cool. I respect that. But if it's a man that's like, "This isn't a decision that I'm ever going to have to make for me, but I'm going to make it for you," that's unacceptable. That's a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't be.
100%.
No one should be in a relationship with someone like that.
I want to read what Amir wrote here.
Please.
Because I think it makes sense to me too. Amir wrote, I think it's one thing to have different views on some issues, but if I was in this situation specifically, I'd have to wonder what my partner would do if I was pregnant and I sought to get an abortion. That could very well happen, and it seems like it would not end well here.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that too. And I agree with you, Amir, that it's important that people have different views on lots of issues and they respect each other. Political views. We can debate like what capital gains tax should be. We should debate how much money we should spend on infrastructure, or what role the police have in our society, or what role our military has in the world. Those are important debates to have. But this isn't a political debate. This is a debate about the bodily autonomy of people that have uteruses. And that's not a political debate. People that have uteruses have the same. This is a controversial thing to say in some parts of the country. People with uteruses have the same bodily autonomy as anybody else does. And if they don't want to have a baby, they shouldn't be forced to have a baby. That's not a political issue. That's a fundamental human rights issue. And the fact that this guy disagrees with that is a reason for you. Oh, I'm so sorry that he's crying because he has to face consequences for his nonsensical beliefs. You can and will do better than this person. He's lied to you in the past. He lies.
Yes.
He lied to you because he's lied to himself, because he has this kind of notion of a belief that he's never examined or fully explored.
It's so inchoate. It's not even a real political / moral thing that he has. It's just something that he says and doesn't. He will apply it to other people, and he won't even apply it to himself. He won't even apply it to other people, and maybe he'll even just lie to people that he wants to sleep with in order to sleep with them. It's so disgusting.
What did John Waters said? If you go over someone's house and they don't have any books, don't fuck them. And this guy doesn't have any books in his brain, so how could he have any books on his shelf?
I thought we didn't curse on this stream.
I know, but if I'm quoting, it's okay if you quote John Waters.
Yeah.
That's allowed. So, I really think, like, I get and I respect this. Like, I want to see things from different people's perspectives, and I can care about someone that I disagree with. Of course, we can all care about people that we disagree with. I care about Oldmin. Oldmin thinks that whatever Super Mario RPG is the best Super Nintendo game. I think it's.
I didn't say it was the best. I said it was my favorite.
Okay. Well, you're entitled to your favorite. I'm entitled to mine. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is also a long debate that I've had before. If someone that that you have a personal relationship is nice to you, and they're kind to you, and then they go to the polls and they vote for policies that harm millions of people, they're not a good person. That's not the definition of a good person. And you have to keep that in mind. Once again, this is not about politics. This is about the way that right-wing movements collude moral questions with political questions so that we take them seriously.
Okay. Let me respond with a slight pushback.
I know what you're going to say.
Friend.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
We've been doing this show for a long time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. It's fine. I think that it is moral and political, and the distinction between those two things is not as clear as maybe you have put it. I think that a lot of things in this world, in your life, are political and moral together, because morality informs politics.
Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think that there's some questions that are both there, because how can we make political decisions in a democracy if we don't follow our morality? But then
Yeah.
there are questions that are also, there's lots of the big things we debate in our society. Like, should we just let there be classrooms full of dead kids because we don't do anything about guns? That's not a political question. There's no politics to that. That is a
I
moral
would
question.
say I
We
would
have a moral
say that
obligation to stop that from happening. Go
I
ahead, sorry.
agree. I agree that we have a moral obligation to
Yeah.
stop that from happening. And I also think that there are some moral positions that are politically correct. or no, let's not say politically correct. Let's just say morally correct. And let's not even say morally correct. Let's just say correct.
Yeah.
Like like the school shooting stuff and the notion that women should have autonomy over their own bodies. That's just correct.
Right.
That's the right
The
thing.
political question is
Period.
what do we do about school shootings? Not should we
Yeah.
do something or not. The
What is
political
what
question
is
is what do we
the
do about climate change? Not should we do something about climate change or not.
Yes, exactly, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the difference. And if people really wanted to make abortion less likely, then if people wanted less abortions, the political question they would be asking is how do we address social and economic issues that make women that find themselves with an unwanted pregnancy not want to have a baby? If they were sincere about their beliefs, that would be the question that we could all have together, because there's a lot of work to do there to give women more opportunities than just getting an abortion or having a baby when they don't feel like they can have one. But the people that are anti-choice don't want to have that conversation because they're not having a political conversation. They're
That's
having
not
a moral conversation.
No, they're having a political conversation and a moral conversation. They just are not saying their actual motivation.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's that they don't want women to have sex, period, outside of marriage.
And it's
That's
not
what
even
it
that
is.
they don't want them to. They want them to because this guy obviously wants to have sex with his partner. They want to punish women that choose to do that. That's really their motivation. And I had this conversation.
Trap them.
I don't remember where I was. I was at a dinner party or something, and it was mostly women that were there. And I almost didn't say anything because I feel like when women are having this conversation, my job is to listen and try to learn.
Yes.
But there were this one woman in this group said that there should be room for anti-choice women in a feminist community. And most everyone there agreed. And I chimed in and I made sure that I was very clear to say, tell me to shut the fuck up and I won't talk anymore. But it seems to me that should only be the case if that belief system that people shouldn't be able to have an abortion if they want to was part of a bigger and more consistent societal view about limiting the amount of guns we have in our society and ending the death penalty and punishing cops when they shoot kids in the back and having affordable health care and affordable child care. If saying you can't have an abortion is part of a bigger plan to have a society where people have more choice. Part of that also needs to be comprehensive sex education for everybody, but they're against all of those things. So when you say you're pro-life, but you're also against anything that even sounds close to being life, then you don't actually have a legitimate. You're not pro anything. You just want to punish poor women for having sex. And in that case, I don't think anybody has a place at anyone's table when that's their worldview.
I've been thinking about related things recently. In the past, I used to think that they were just lying about their, like they would just say these things like women shouldn't have abortions, but I completely support the death penalty and police shooting kids in the back if they have a squirt gun on the playground.
Or their hands in their pockets.
Or their hands in their pockets or anything like even less than that. Yeah, exactly. And I used to think that they were just lying. And that maybe at some level they really did know how inconsistent they were being. And I accepted the idea that maybe they were just too dumb to even recognize that there was some kind of contradiction between those things. And these days, like more recently, I think the more fundamental thing is that some people just lose their curiosity about the world as adults, and they stop thinking. Period. It's not a lie.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a recognition. There's no recognition that these things are incompatible, logically incompatible, and it's also not just about their being dumb. It's also I think that it's really just a lack of curiosity.
Yeah.
Somehow people just lose the idea that they should continue learning and thinking, and you could call that being stupid. You could, and to an extent that is what it is, but at the same time, it's something that has spread in all other kind of aspects. um, Scams, for example, scammers have become a lot more like out there recently. People are scamming all over the place.
Yeah.
Perhaps I didn't recognize it before, but it seems to me that scams have become much more mainstream and accepted than they used to be. Um, anyway, I'm getting kind of off topic, but
But people have less, like I used this term before, intellectual integrity. That people are less
Mhm.
willing to think about why they think the things they do. I have a different take on that though, especially, and we're getting way more political than we usually do on the show, but we're
We
here, so we
should
might as
though.
well keep going. My take on the right wing. I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats, although the far right wing has taken over so much of the Republican Party in this country. Is the there's a culture. It's not that people are dumb, because well, I get intellectually that some people might have more intellectual power than other people do. I refuse to acknowledge that when I'm looking at people's behaviors, unless someone has like is clinically intellectually disabled or something. I think that what happens in America, at least, and I think this is very similar to what happens in right wing movements all over the world, especially in Europe in the 1930s, is there becomes this shift in a culture where people don't go to the people on the right wing don't go to, and right wing movements all over the time throughout history don't go to the polls. They don't go to vote because they have a desire or their own like policy agenda. They wait for their political and cultural and religious leaders to tell them what they should care about, and then they go and vote according to that. It's the opposite of grassroots. It's a top down movement that they don't have any political policy, a policy agenda of their own, that they're given marching instructions by their political and cultural and religious leaders, and then they go according to that. That's why this guy's a perfect example. The guy in the letter, he's never really thought through the implications of what it means to be anti-choice. He's anti-choice because he grew up in a culture that told him to be anti-choice, and he's never thought about it otherwise. Historically, this is one of the really dangerous shifts we've made in a country in the United States. Historically, the politicians and people in power in the right wing of American politics only cared about two things. Rich people don't pay taxes and big corporations get to do whatever they want. But
Mhm.
people wouldn't vote for that because most people aren't rich or significant shareholders in Fortune 500 companies. So that's not enough. That policy, rich people don't pay taxes, big corporations do whatever they want. That policy was never going to get anybody elected. I actually think it did for a long time, but starting like in the 70s and 80s, especially after Watergate, that the Republican Party in America decided that they needed to really invest in these kind of cockamamie conspiracy theories that Democrats are Marxists, or that people are going to force your kid to have gender reassignment surgery in school, or that illegal immigrants are eating our dogs, or whatever. Understanding that gayness exists is what makes your kid become gay or whatever. That they come up with all of this nonsense to scare people and to get people to vote against their own self-interest. That's why you can go to like a rural town in West Virginia where the water and the air are polluted, the natural beautiful landscape has been strip mined, giant pharmaceutical companies have been allowed to come in and trick people into becoming junkies. There's no good jobs, there's no economic growth. And you can go to people that live there and ask them what are their biggest concerns, and they're going to say immigrants from the border and trans kids playing football or whatever. It's because they don't decide what they want based on what they see in their lives. They decide on what they want based on what the party tells them. That's the definition, by the way, at least my definition of fascism, is that what the party says is true, and what I see with my own eyes and ears, what I feel with my own heart, what I think with my own brain is not true. If it's counter to what the party says, then I reject that because I choose to believe everything that the party tells me to believe. And most of the time, the reason they're doing that is because part of the party policy is they get to hurt people that they already wanted to hurt, whether that's immigrants, whether that's black or brown people, whether that's poor women that have chosen to have sex, whether it's trans kids, whether it's whoever, that people choose to believe those lies. They're not because they're dumb, not because they don't know better, but because it excuses their already deeply felt desire to hurt people that they don't like.
Mm-hmm. But what does it mean to be an adult person who loses that curiosity of what truth actually is and substitute what you want to believe?
Yeah, I mean,
what is the label for that?
A fascist?
Yeah, I mean, like, but also it's a little bit more nuanced because there's all these like new agey types who do exactly the same thing, and there's a pipeline from new agey shit to fascism.
It's called the woo to Q. You ever hear that? The woo to Q.
The woo to Q. I love that. I love that. I have never heard that before. Actually,
but it's people choose. People
it's
choose
awful,
to believe. People know what lying is. Lying's not new. Politicians lying is not new. None of that is new. People know that they're being lied to by politicians. They choose to believe those lies because it excuses behavior that they already wanted to have. Here's a perfect example, and I hate to talk about Nazis, but we're gonna do it anyways.
Go for it.
You know, the Nazis were elected to power in Germany, and they were elected to power on a conspiracy theory that said that the German people were just on the cusp of winning the First World War, and then they were stabbed in the back. It's called the stab in the back myth, by what started off as being the civilian government, and then the story turned into it to being communists, and then the story turned into it being Jews, came in and gave up and surrendered the war on the cusp of their victory because they wanted to humiliate the German people, whatever that means. The problem with that is Germany was totally mobilized. No one didn't know someone that had been fighting in the front lines. Germany had been losing World War I for a long time before they surrendered. If you didn't have firsthand experience with losing the war, you certainly knew probably lots of people that did. They chose to. It was an easy lie to disprove. It was counter to a lot of people's lived experience. But people overwhelmingly chose to believe in that lie because it justified something that they already wanted to do, which was to hurt people in their community, whether those people were the anti-war people, whether those people were communists, whether they were Jews, whether they were gay, whether they were disabled, all of the different kinds of people that were ground up in the monstrosity that became Nazi Germany. They were, if not directly murdered, they were surrendered and shoved off into camps by their neighbors. And it's because their neighbors wanted to hurt them to begin with. And they chose to believe in that lie because it made it easy for them to do that. And we're moving, you know, hopefully, I don't know if, you know, I'm not saying that it's going to get that bad here soon, but we're moving in such a similar direction. People are choosing to believe in nonsensical lies.
Disgusting.
Because it excuses the behavior they already wanted to have.
I'm just going to get political here. I've been really upset by this whole slander, blood libel, basically, against the Haitian people in Springfield.
Yeah.
That is what it is. It's not the same as the blood libel that was rendered against Jewish people, but at the same time, it's not that far off. And it has really upset me these past couple weeks
Yeah.
to see that is the strategy, and the media is really dropping the ball on calling it what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the type of lie that's going to directly cause real physical harm to
People are going to
lots
die.
of people. Yeah.
It's going to happen,
Yeah,
and it's awful.
But just remember that hopefully it won't, but if it happens, and it seems unavoidable at this point, unfortunately, the people that end up perpetrating that violence are people that easily could have found out that that's not true. And they've chosen to believe that it is because
they believe the thing they wanted. They have never in their adult lives ever distinguished between what is true based on evidence and things that they want to be true because it comforts them in some way.
Yeah. Well,
like I have a lot of moral judgment.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, I wanted to stop.
Sorry. Let's I understand. I'm getting upset. I apologize.
I know. I've gone however many episodes we've done without talking about Nazis, but this was the time. Let's do another question. Let's do a little.
Sure. Let's do another one.
Palate cleanser. This is a light one, and I think it's fun because to me, at least, it's super low stakes. My girlfriend has a cold sore, and we both want to have sex with each other. Nice. But I'm concerned I could contract herpes if we do. My main concern is it possible to get oral or genital herpes during normal, safe, penetrative sex if we don't kiss each other or do oral sex? Thanks in advance.
Oh, boy.
So you know that I love questions about herpes because I'm always going to say my answer about herpes is just get herpes, man. Everybody's got it. You get it sooner or later. If you're over 30 and you don't have herpes, you're playing the game wrong. And just get over it and just get herpes. However, if you don't want to get it so obviously, then I will say that if your partner has a cold sore on their mouth, you can't get herpes from having penetrative sex with them as long as they don't have herpes on their, there's two types of herpes. There's upstairs herpes and there's downstairs herpes. And you can't get downstairs herpes from being exposed to someone with upstairs herpes. Almost never. It does happen, but it's very rare, and vice versa. So really, you could still have oral sex and probably not get herpes.
She could also press her doctor to get some of those, some of the medicine that makes it much less likely, like 0.1% possibility within a year of having sex all the time type of stuff. That is a possibility.
If you don't want to wait for the cold sore to go away, and there's medication, there's prescriptions she can get that make it go away a lot faster. If you don't want to wait, then she's got it on her mouth, so you can have penetrative sex and just don't kiss, which is a weird feeling thing to do, but certainly people do all the time. I've heard that referred to, and I'm not referring to it this way, but I've heard that referred to before as hooker sex when there's no kissing.
Ew, Jeremy, ew.
I didn't say that. I'm saying other people call it that. I'm familiar. I've heard of the concept before. So yeah, and even if she's having an outbreak of oral herpes, it is not likely that you could catch that even from oral sex because the downstairs herpes and the upstairs herpes are separate, and it can happen, but usually it doesn't. That you can get upstairs on your downstairs or downstairs on your upstairs. But also, if you like her and you're going to be together for a long time, you're probably going to get it anyways. So end the stigma on herpes. Almost everybody has it sooner or later in their life. Mm-hmm. And if you're
40 plus, it's like 85% or something like that of people.
It's almost impossible to avoid. Don't stress about it too much. I guess you don't need to go out of your way to get it. But
join one of those herpes dating sites, going for it.
Yeah. You know how anti-vaxxers bring their kid with polio over and have a polio party so everyone gets exposed to it because they think that's gonna whatever. We're not gonna.
Oh my goodness, we're just getting political this whole episode apparently.
But also, not getting vaccinated. Vaccines aren't political. There's no political.
They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be, but they are.
Anyways, that's my answer. Is you can always have sex without kissing. If it's just oral herpes she has, you can't catch it from that. Genital herpes, even wearing a condom, sometimes isn't going to 100% protect you from genital herpes. But I guess I'm saying you don't need to go out of your way to get herpes, but I wouldn't stress out too much about avoiding it. Because you're likely going to, unless you only ever have one partner for your entire life, which who would want to do that? Then it's going to be pretty hard to avoid it. Herpes is what I always
Herpes!
Say. I kind of don't want to play this game anymore.
That's okay.
I know.
I think you need to get a little bit further in the game, and maybe we should continue once you get to chapter 1.
Okay, maybe that's a good idea. I'll play it a little bit on my own, and we'll decide. What else can we talk about, though? We got about a half an hour until I was playing on the stream. I do have one more question that I'd like to get to. Did you have?
I got a question too.
Oldmin? Okay, let's do it.
Yes, it wasn't like I had 10 minutes to find this. I did already have the screenshot on my phone though.
Okay.
So clearly I must have thought it was a good one. It's not a good one. It's also just it's depressing.
Oh, we're already depressed from the last one.
All right.
So let's just go for it.
Dear Jeremy.
Sometimes the best way out is in, or the best way up is down.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Okay.
This is about it's a family issue. It's not a dating thing.
Okay.
My grandmother was never warm and fuzzy when I was growing up. Now she is a miserable old witch, draining the life out of my mom and uncle. She isn't satisfied with anything and makes demands like a spoiled toddler.
Ugh.
She uses a walker, but expects my mom to run home every day to make her lunch. My uncle needs to drop everything if she can't figure out how to watch her shows. She ignores her doctors and can't make an appointment that doesn't conflict with anyone else's schedule. She insults everyone and tries to guilt you if you call her on it. Oh, you just want me to die. Oh, you want to throw me out in the streets. Oh, you want me to put me in a home like a dog. Worse, she dotes on her monster of a dog that bites. It looks like a blimp with teeth. And my grandmother will feed it human food, so it poops all over. I live 3 hours away, and when I visit to give my mother some respite, I try not to interact with my grandmother. I deep clean, work on the yard, and go grocery shopping. I got into a fight with my grandmother because after I came home and started to unload the groceries, she demanded I run across town and pick up a rotisserie chicken. Not for us, but for her dog. I told her no, and she swore at me. I put the groceries up and took a long walk before I did something I regretted. Now my mom and uncle both blame me for setting off my grandmother. I am tired. I feel guilty that my mom and uncle have to handle this, but I can't deal with it. They refuse to look for governmental aid or sell her old house and look for a retirement home. I don't know what to do. Help.
That is a very rough and upsetting situation to find yourself in.
I agree.
One of the things that I find so, like we both read a lot of these advice questions, is, like a lot of family dynamics have this one person that for whatever reason is, mentally ill, physically ill, just a horrible person, some combination of all three, that like is, if this is a reasonable dynamic between people in a family, that they're always like here, and then they expect you to meet them halfway, and everyone else in the family expects you to meet them halfway, and the halfway point between being unreasonable and reasonable is not reasonable. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
All right.
So you have this person that has these outlandish demands, and everyone's like, oh, just, do your best, meet them in the middle. But that's still being unreasonable. you know, there, I feel like we've talked about this on the show a lot. My partner and I talk about this a lot too. Is that there's most cultures, most family dynamics fall within a spectrum. On one end, you have like familial obligations, and on the other end, you have like personal growth and satisfaction. And it's a spectrum, and I think a lot of people find themselves totally on one end or the other, and neither of those places is a good place to be. You have to find some place on that spectrum that works for you. And I think that the family dynamic this person's talking about is someone that's 100% on the family obligation part and has none of the like self actualization, that's the word I was looking for, part. And the letter writer can't do an awful lot about that from the perspective of their mom and their uncle, because they're adults and they have to decide for themselves what type of relationship they want to have with their mother. And the letter writer can see this, and obviously this would be a painful and upsetting thing to experience. There's ultimately not a lot they can do. And unless they wanted to like sneak into the grandmother's house and like smother her with a pillow at night or something, there's not an awful lot they can do to help with this. Their mother is an adult person, and they can make up their mind about what they want to do and what type of relationship they want to have with their mother. In the same way, I feel like people a lot of times talk about how when you're a parent and your kid becomes an adult, you're kind of limited in what you can do with how they live their lives. And it's the same, it goes the opposite way too, that when you're an adult child of a person, there's only but so much you can do to control your parents' lives too. You kind of have to let them sort this out on their own. You can certainly tell them, hey, I don't like the way that this looks. I don't like the way you're being treated. None of this is sustainable. I'm here to help you figure out. You need to do research into government assistance programs. You need to do research into a home. You need to find an agent to sell grandma's old house. I can help you do all of that, but you have to tell me that you're ready to do that. And until they are, you can't do anything. The only thing you can do is to remind them every once in a while, hey, I got some brochures about retirement communities. I have one that looks really nice. If you want to look at it, let me know if you're ready. I have, I've done a Yelp review of the realtors in your area. If you want to try to sell the house, I have a couple people whose phone numbers I have. If you want to, I can send those to you when you're ready. You're not ready yet? Okay, well, I'll check in a little bit longer. That's really all you can do for that sort of thing, is make sure that you remind them you don't want to do it too often, but you remind them semi-regularly that you're there to help them when they're ready to get help. Mm-hmm. Amir says, save the poor Poochie. Yeah,
I was going to say, I completely agree with Amir. At the same time, I think I chose this one because this was like one of the most aggro letters from a letter writer that I've seen. Where, okay, let's go through this again. Just 1 second here. Old witch, spoiled toddler, ignores her doctors. Well, sure. Oh, you just want me to die. Oh, you just want to throw me out on the streets. Oh, you just want to treat me like a dog. Maybe this woman is saying these things. I'm sure that all of this is true. We have to assume that it is. Monster. Her dog is a blimp with teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did she really ask her daughter to go into town to pick up a rotisserie chicken for her dog? Again, we have to assume this is true.
Yeah.
All of this stuff.
I would love to see that dog go to town on a rotisserie chicken, though. That would
they would love it. And also become a blimp. Yeah. But I guess the thing, all of what you said, I agree with, Jeremy. And as you know, I have family members who I do not have a good relationship with. And I can understand why somebody would be this angry at their grandmother. I definitely, this is a bit of an edgy thing to say, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, but I definitely picked up some intergenerational trauma going on here.
Yeah.
Where people are imitating the same type of things that they're complaining about.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of anger and frustration in that letter. But a lot of it seems like it's not totally misplaced, assuming that we're taking all
Yeah,
of it as factual at face value.
exactly.
And these types of like interfamily dynamics can become so overwhelming for people because even if you live 3 hours away, you can end up spending so much time kind of submersed into this unhealthy
Mm-hmm.
situation. And then
I
like
get,
I mean, I
pardon me.
seeing my if I just can imagine how I would react if I saw my mom being what I felt like being treated unfairly. I'd lose my shit. So I can understand that.
I can too. At the same time, maybe it's just my personal background and my own family dynamics that I'm talking about, but like, yes, asking somebody to go get a rotisserie chicken for your dog is unreasonable and weird and aggro and terrible. But there are worse things out there. There are a lot worse things out there that you could
Yeah.
have going on in your family than somebody who is old and in pain and probably never learned to even be the type of person who could deal with it's hard for me to even talk about without even talking about my personal situation. But yeah, like there are worse things than anything that she has described her grandmother doing that could happen. And I'm not trying to say that to invalidate her anger or to
Yeah.
say that like any of this is okay, but it could be worse.
Yeah.
And this is a very old woman who
Yeah.
is declining.
Do they
I'm
say how old she
yeah.
is?
They don't, but it's a grandmother.
Yeah. Um, or not listening to your doctors is kind of a problem that tends to solve itself eventually, unfortunately.
You know
Um,
what though? I can really relate to the letter writer's emotional distress about how this person is draining her mother and her uncle.
yeah.
Like my mom is the person who I care about a lot, and there's another family member who is draining her. And so I completely understand why that would make her so angry that she would use that kind of language.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I need to do a little bit of self reflection about this one. I don't know.
um, yeah, I mean, I understand that that's got to be a difficult situation. I think that when you find yourself dealing with kind of this unsustainable kind of damaging family dynamic, your options are really to either cut everybody loose, which is a legitimate thing to do. I feel like there's a lot of writing and discussion about people on purpose. What is it called when you separate yourself from your family? You never talk to them again. I feel like there's a lot of talk about that these days. And I think under lots of circumstances, that's the right thing to do for everybody's health.
Estrangement.
Estrangement, thank you. Or you can't get them to you can just be available to help when they're ready to be helped. And when I say they, I mean the mom and the uncle when they're ready for help. And just make sure
Right.
that you communicate to them regularly that you're available.
You
You're
don't even need
available
to
to them.
shit talk your grandma. You just
Yeah,
need to say, "I'm here for you. I
yeah,
love you."
yeah.
And
You shouldn't
if you're
shit talk
having
the
a hard
grandmother.
time,
Yeah.
well, maybe a little bit.
Well, I mean, they can shit talk the grandmother to other people, but I feel like saying,
Well,
that I think risks the idea of the mother and the uncle thinking that it's the three of them, the mother, the uncle, and the grandmother against everybody
yes,
else.
I agree with that.
Yeah. If you need to shit
Sort
talk
of.
the old lady, then you can shit talk them to your friends or whatever.
Right. Okay, I can't answer or talk about this question without thinking about my own situation.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I understand.
and it's not a grandmother, by the way, not my grandma. They're both gone. So
Um, we got about 15 minutes left. I got one more.
let's do it.
Okay, this one This one's also a little bit of a bummer. We need to do better about picking less bummer questions. I 31 female.
There's no way to do it.
I know. I 31 female have been with my partner 31 male since we were 18, living together for 7 years. I have been wanting to get married for a few years, mostly so that I can get leave at work if he's in the hospital or vice versa. I would love a ring, a dress, and the whole thing, but he would not, so that is not a possibility. He says he is okay to sign the papers if I arrange everything, but he's not willing to do any effort towards it because it is a bureaucratic mess. I'm not okay with that because I feel like getting married should be something to be thrilled about and not just a chore. I don't need the party. I don't need a ring or a dress. I only want him to be happy about it. I'm at an age when everyone around me is getting married and having babies and being happy all around, and I feel like my relationship is just gloomy compared to that. I love this man, but I am considering ending things. If after all these years he is not thrilled to marry me, I don't think there is much solution. I don't want to strong arm him into anything.
Poor honey.
I know.
Oh my
goodness. We always read these questions and try to interpret them at face value. You don't have to read in between the lines to this, a lot of this, to know that she does actually want to have a wedding. And she does actually want to get married. And she doesn't feel like she can say it out loud because she knows that if she did, then she would be in contradiction to what he says he wants.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's depressing, man.
I mean, there's a couple things. We'll answer the question in a minute. There's a couple teachable moments out of this. One is, and I know a few people that are in their 30s and close to 40s who are with the same person they were when they were 18 years old, and they have a beautiful, happy, healthy relationship. But almost nobody that gets together at 18 and are still together in their 30s is in a good place. Being in a committed long-term relationship, whether you get married or not, is committing to change together. And there's awful lot of change that happens between 18 and 31. At least there's an awful lot of change that should happen between 18 and 31. And that sometimes means that one person changes and the other person doesn't. I think the saddest thing about this to me is that she doesn't feel like she can even say what she wants.
Yeah, exactly. She's been made to feel guilty that she wants something that is so normal and fine and romantic. And
the idea that describing your relationship as gloomy that's not acceptable. You need to get out of that one right away. Amir says, I'd like to know why the other person feels so strongly against it. It seems like they haven't talked it through enough. I agree with that. A little bit of background for me, when my partner and I started to get serious, we talked a lot about marriage and weddings. And I initially didn't want to do any of that because in my mind, that a wedding is something that's massive, it's expensive, it's impersonal, and it follows a lot of meaningless traditions and societal expectations. And when we initially had that conversation and she said, but I want to have a wedding. And I said that I don't. And we talked about why. And we both realized your wedding can be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to do any of the things you don't want it to be. And you can make it something that feels real and personal to both of you.
Exactly.
And you don't have to just go and say, well, this is going to cost us, $20,000 and we're going to have to invite 300 people and whatever.
You don't have to go to Cabo San Lucas. You don't have to go on a destination wedding. A wedding, the only thing that it needs to be is something that makes both people feel good about it and makes sense in the situation. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to meet anybody else's expectations.
Yeah. And so, you need to find out what he doesn't want about what he doesn't like about a wedding. And then maybe you can try. suspect that's, anyways, you can try to see if you can come up with some kind of collaboration where everybody
Yeah.
gets a little bit of what they want and it feels real and exciting for both of you. And if he's not willing to even work with you, not wanting to do any of the paperwork because it's a bureaucratic mess. I mean,
It's not that bad.
I don't know where they're living, but most places getting married, as far as the paperwork goes, is real easy.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, can't say my marriage worked out, but still, I know it's not that bad.
Right. It didn't
The,
work
the
out.
paperwork.
The reason it didn't work out wasn't because of the bureaucracy.
It was not. Well, I am a bureaucrat in a certain sense, so
Yeah.
I was fine with that part.
Anyways, that's what I gotta say. Is I'm not gonna tell anybody to break up or stay together, but I just don't see a way forward for these folks.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
say break up, find somebody better.
I don't ever like the idea of comparing your life to other people's lives, but when she says this relationship is just gloomy compared to all their friends that are getting married and having babies, like
the stuff that he was saying, it's rationalization for not doing it. It's not real reasoning. It's actually just him finding reasons that aren't actually reasons.
Okay.
Man.
Well, sorry, everybody.
Well, can we try to find some like happy Dear Abby type things? I'm not sure if that's even possible though.
Yeah, let's see real quick if I can find something. You look too. If anyone has
I didn't mean right now. I meant for next time.
I was just gonna take 2 seconds to look. My husband died. No.
Nope.
Maybe
I shouldn't laugh at that,
but no, I said it specifically so you would laugh. All right, well, let's start to wrap it up, everybody. This was fun, even though we talked a lot about sad things. Things are part of life, and nobody gets to avoid being sad or dealing with sadness, unfortunately. But I think we learned a lot. We had a lot of productive conversations. I hope that you learned a lot too, everybody at home. But now
you know what? Awkward laughter in the face of horrible things is actually a good thing for you to practice and do.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
If you found my laughter awkward tonight, that was why. Because I have matured.
Did you there's this documentary that I saw recently about Steve Martin. I don't remember what it was on. Max or something probably. And he talked about, his stand-up when he started stand-up was so dumb on purpose and so silly and goofy. And he said the reason people liked that so much is because they were just coming out of the 60s where everybody was serious and everyone felt like they had to be serious. Everything was important. And he wanted to be the opposite of that. And that's what resonated with his audience and why he like sold out giant venues just with having like a fake arrow going through his head and wearing like bunny ears or whatever.
Yeah. Egyptian dance, sketch, etc., etc.
Loved it because they needed something silly and dumb after spending so much time being serious. I feel like we're in one of those really serious times as a culture these days. So, there's nothing wrong with being serious and we should be serious, but maybe it's a good idea if you have a chance to, everybody watching, to go check out I'm sure it's all on YouTube. Check out some of Steve Martin's old stand-up because it is not serious. It's dumb, but very much on purposely dumb, and is a good time. I enjoy.
You know what, Jeremy? You and I have never really talked about like how I think about my sense of humor in an intellectual sense.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up in this way. I think that church night, which we mentioned earlier, that you did, was a really good like merging of the silly and the serious at the same time, and I think that's really the thing that I like the most in comedy.
Yeah, I think that's what we did the best is we would be dumb and silly and funny for like quite a while, and then at the end of the show suddenly there'd be like an actually really valuable and kind of challenging moral lesson to share with people.
That was the structure of it. But I think I really okay. I can't say this because you're the one who did it, but like I felt like you guys did a really good job of having both of those things throughout the show. Obviously, there was that whole like arc
Yeah, yeah,
that you did in the show, but also like it was both throughout the whole thing. Usually,
yeah.
a lot more silliness in the middle, the beginning and the middle than the end, but still,
There were
like
a lot.
you guys did a really good job of
Most
that.
of the time when we were writing a show, we'd start with like what's the moral of this particular show, and then sometimes we'd be like, let's just do one without a moral. Not everything has to be a lesson. Let's just do a show
Yeah.
for funsies. And we couldn't do it. We'd always come back. We'd just discover like, oh my gosh, this is an important life lesson to discuss.
How wonderful.
Yeah, my it's easy for me to describe my sense of humor because I wrote so many jokes. But I think the quintessential Jeremy International joke, the structure of any joke I've written more or less, is always the same. I think that I was thinking about this the other day. The joke that I wrote for that show that stuck with me a lot recently that I've just cracked myself up with all the time is there was an episode where we were talking about our biggest fears, and I wrote this joke for Lindsay's character, for Kathy, where she said her biggest fear is that while she's asleep, a spider is going to crawl into her ear and lay eggs, and then she's going to have to take care of all these baby spiders. And that's like just that kind of like subverting of your expectation. Like, yeah, that's like a fear
That's
people
what
have
it's
is
about.
that they're going to have baby spiders in their ear, but her concern was they were going to have to be her responsibility, that she was going to have to raise them.
Yeah.
And
Platonic form of a joke.
yeah, I wrote that exact same joke a million billion times for that show, and I'm very proud of every one of them because it is the platonic form of a joke. Yeah, or like another one where we were talking about saving water, and we said the joke I wrote was, if it's yellow, let it mellow, because we're talking about not flushing the toilet. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, keep it around. So then you just never flush the toilet. Anyways, I'm real proud of the work I did on that show, and I hope that we get to come back and do it again soon. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. This has been the Advice Stream. I'm Jeremy International, and I was joined, as I so often am, by my friend and yours, Oldmin. We were playing Buck Rogers' Countdown to Doom, which I honestly got kind of bored with, but it seems like it's a quality game, and I would like to play it a little bit more, maybe on my own time. Thanks for the good vibes, Amir. I hope you have a great week and have lots of good vibes too. We will be back next Monday doing something, I don't know what. And I will see you then. Thanks, Oldman.
Of course.
See you next time.